Good afternoon, everybody. Today we are going to be beginning a unit on ancient India. This video is dedicated strictly to Hinduism. Later we will do Buddhism and the early empires of the Mauryans and the Guptas. So what you have to do today is watch the video, taking notes using the basic Hindu beliefs chart that I gave you in class. For the symbol column, you only need to describe the symbol. You do not need to draw it. If you want to draw it, you certainly can. You should include on your chart or on the back of your chart a description of the caste system. You should probably draw the chart that I will show you later in the video. And you'll need to be able to list the sacred texts of the Hindus. Your completed chart will count as a homework assignment, so it will be due in class tomorrow. Hinduism. Hinduism is one of the oldest and most complex religions in the world. Unlike most major religions, Hinduism has no single founder. It developed and changed over 3,500 years, growing out of the diverse peoples who have settled in India. These groups include the original inhabitants of the Indus River Valley, who we've just finished studying, as well as the nomadic Aryans who invaded India around 1500 BC, and then the people they interacted with. Hinduism's most sacred scriptures are called the Vedas, which means knowledge, in Sanskrit, the ritual language of Hinduism. The Vedas began first as an oral tradition before there was a writing system, and modern scholars have speculated that they date back as far as 6500 BCE or 8,500 years ago. Historians believe that the Vedas were written down around 1000 BCE or earlier. Other elements of Hinduism, such as the sacred symbols and the worship of certain gods, can also be traced back to the 7th century BCE. So again, to 8,000, 8,500 years ago. Okay, the word Hindu is first used by the ancient Persians to describe the practices and beliefs of people who lived east of the river Sindhu or the Indus River. Hindus called their religion Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religion, or the Vedic Dharma, the religion of knowledge. Over the millennia, which is a term for thousands of years, Hinduism has continued to evolve, and in modern times it incorporates a wide variety of religious beliefs and practices. Hinduism has historically been tolerant of other religions, believing that all religions can be legitimate paths to God. How unique. As of 1997, there were nearly 1 billion Hindus in the world, more than 900 million of them living in India. That number has probably grown significantly along with the population of India. Okay, over here you have the symbolic representation of the individual soul, or the atman, and separating from the supreme God Brahman, which is depicted as the cosmos or the heavens. Okay, Brahman is the name for Hinduism's one supreme God or spirit. Brahman creates, he maintains, destroys, and then recreates the universe in a never-ending cycle. Everything in the world, including each human soul or atman, is part of Brahman. Just like a single drop of water in a great ocean, the atman is both separate from and at one with Brahman, God. A Hindu spiritual goal is to unite his and her soul with Brahman. And we're going to talk now about the ways that goes about happening. Okay. Have a picture on the left side of the screen. There are 4 gods and goddesses from the upper left. So right here. Okay, we see the goddess Sri Vishwaroopa. Say that 3 times fast. Shown here as containing all the gods within herself. You see how she has all the arms and heads? One of the concepts of Hindu God is that Brahman is one God with many faces, and this is just an example of it. Okay, the God Brahman is the next one over here. Okay, you'll see with the cow that is considered sacred in India. Brahman is the creator. The goddess Durga, who is the wife of Shiva, who is the destroyer, is in the bottom right. And then the God Vishnu, who is the preserver of everything, he is in the bottom left. Okay. Hindus have this concept called universal spirit. Okay, they believe in one unifying spirit, Brahman. But because Brahman is too complex for humans to understand, Hindus worship gods that give a more concrete form to Brahman. Hindus worship many gods and goddesses, but they believe the gods are all aspects of one supreme god or Brahman. It's very similar to some of the polytheistic religions where you had a rain god and a sun god and a moon god. Hinduism doesn't quite get that specific with theirs. Each god has different aspects of life that it controls, but it's all part of one greater god in Brahman, where in the polytheistic religions, it's a separate god for each one. Now, each Hindu person or family may be especially devoted to a particular god or goddess. The three most important Hindu gods are Brahma, the creator. Don't confuse that with Brahman, the one god. Then there's Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. The goal of life is to achieve a union with Brahman, and we'll get into how that goes about here as we go along today. Okay. This picture shows people performing the duties of their varna or class, thereby honoring the Hindu god Vishnu, who is at the center. So here's Vishnu right here. Okay. In the upper left, you have the Brahmins, who are religious scholars. In the upper right, you have, not even going to try to pronounce that, they're the lawmakers and the warriors. The bottom right, or bottom right, you have the Shudras, who are the laborers. And then in the bottom left, you have the Vaishyas, who are the merchants. Now, one of the big concepts in Hinduism is Dharma. Okay, Dharma means to hold or support. And part of Dharma relates to the sacred or holy duty or a moral responsibility. It is the system of rules and values that Hindus follow in their everyday life. Another way to think of Dharma is as the right thing to do in any situation. If you're following your Dharma, you're doing what's right. Okay? Hindus believe in a universal Dharma that includes all the values that Hindus accept and practice. Big one is nonviolence. However, Hindus also believe that you have an individual Dharma that you have to follow. So you have this overarching Dharma, but then you have your own personal Dharma. People's Dharma are determined by different things, such as their personality, their age, their sex, and their inherited social class or Varna, which we will get to a little bit more detail when we talk about the caste system. Hinduism teaches that when people follow their Dharma, they contribute to the harmony and balance of society and the universe. So if you're doing the right things, everything is going to be in balance. Everything is going to be good. Okay. This picture shows the levels of existence which people can be reborn, depending on their past actions or karma, which we will talk about next. So you can see there's different levels. Up on top, looks like everybody's having a good time in a party. Down below, it's just kind of okay. And then the bottom doesn't look so hot. Looks like people are lying in the dirt and starving and all sorts of good stuff. So you want to be up on the top level. And the idea of, one of the big ideas of Hinduism is working your way up this ladder from the bottom to the top. And you do that by following your Dharma, but also by following your karma. Okay? Hindus believe that karma is the sum of the good and bad actions that a human soul or an atman carries with it from life to life. So everything you do in your life is part of your karma. Okay? And your karma will carry on with you when you go to the next life. Okay? They believe that when people die, the soul leaves the body and is reborn into another body, and you take your karma with you. Hinduism teaches that people's good and bad actions in one life influence their destiny in future lives. In Hinduism, karma determines whether a soul is reborn as a human or an animal, to a rich family or a poor one, and some of the things a person will experience in each lifetime. An example, Hindus believe that a person who steals in this life may be robbed in a future life, or that someone who harms animals may be reborn as an animal that is harmed. Okay, so it's kind of a little bit of what goes around comes around. If it doesn't happen to you in this life, it'll happen to you in the next. So you try to live the best life you can live. Okay, all of these things combine into samsara. Okay, and samsara is simply the progress through life stages, ending with death and then rebirth. So you see, you have a little baby over here. Okay, working its way up to an old man. Okay, eventually you die and you're reborn as a new person in a different body, but you take your karma with you, and your karma is a result of how well you followed your Dharma. Okay, so in Hinduism, Samsara is this continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The process of rebirth is often referred to as reincarnation. The goal of a Hindu's life is to be released from samsara and united with Supreme God Brahman. So it's to continue doing the right thing, the Dharma, trying to keep good karma, and eventually rising to the top of the pile where you will become one with Brahma, one with the Supreme God. This is called moksha, and it's achieved after a person's soul has lived through many lifetimes. Hindus achieve moksha by following the path of Dharma, balancing out your karma, both good and bad, worshiping the gods faithfully, and having a direct personal experience of God by following certain spiritual practices. Okay, so that brings us to the caste system. The caste system is an integral part of Hinduism because it has a lot to do with this cycle of rebirth. Okay, castes are social groups into which people are born and out of which they cannot move during a lifetime. If you are born in that class, no matter how much money you make, you could go be Bill Gates, be a billionaire. You're still part of that caste. Okay, if you were in a low caste, you stay in the low caste, no matter how great your socioeconomic standing is. However, a person can be reborn into a higher caste if you have good karma. Now, there are 3 basic castes during the Aryan times. A later one is added later, and then eventually you have a 5th caste, the untouchables, which comes in. So the 3 basic castes during the early Aryan times were the Brahmins, who were the priests, the warriors, and a group called that included herders, farmers, artisans, and merchants called the Vaisyas. Okay. Later, a separate group was created for non-Aryans. This group was called Sudras and included farm workers and servants. And at the bottom are the untouchables, who are the bottom of the social system. And this is generally thought that you have the worst, you haven't followed Dharma, you have the worst karma, you've done bad things in your previous lives, and that's why you ended up on the bottom. And they're called untouchables. Other people in other castes do not want to be around them, do not want to associate with them in any way, shape, or form. Okay, here is a simple chart of the chart. On the top, again, Brahmins. Then you have the warrior class, the skilled merchants, traders, and minor officials, the Sudras, and then the pariah or untouchable class. Gandhi called them the children of God because God's the only one who can take care of them. Okay. Finally, it brings us to the sacred texts of Hinduism. Over several thousand years, the Hindu teachings were developed and recorded in a number of sacred texts. These texts include the Vedas, which we've already mentioned, the collection of prayers and sacred verses, the Upanishads, which are philosophical dialogues about Hindu beliefs. The Upanishads explore how a person can achieve liberation from desire and suffering. This liberation is described as moksha, which we've already mentioned, a state of perfect understanding of all that brings a release from this life. And then you have the Mahabharata. It's a Sanskrit epic poem that tells of a war for control of the Ganges Valley around 1000 BCE. Contains myth, prayers, narratives, and stories. We're going to be looking at a couple sections from that in class. Principal teaching is Dharma, or devotion to duty, and the major source of religious and social doctrines for India for many thousands of years. That's what the Mahabharata is. So, in this video, you should have made sure that you are filling out your chart as you go along. If you've missed parts, you need to go back and replay those parts. You should have created on the back of the page a pyramid of the caste system, and you should be able to explain tomorrow in class what universal spirit means, Dharma, karma, and samsara. Thanks for listening.